There were a couple of things in this chapter that really caught my attention in terms of how we define virtual worlds and game and play, and what the criteria were that were set out in this chapter. And I think the two things that are closely related to me were the idea of consequential participation and the space being populous. And as Peirce says, that the virtual worlds by definition are social in nature. And some of this idea to me, I think, relates back to the fact that over the summer I read Jane McGonigal's Reality is Broken, and it all kind of clicks together in terms of this idea that the games and even the virtual worlds that we might not consider games but more open play have this sense that our actions have meaning and that we can make contributions to these virtual communities in ways that we don't typically find in our everyday life in the real world. And that to me is fascinating. And as McGonigal says, if we can find ways to turn those virtual experiences into real world effort and real world products and outcomes, then we can really harness all of the power of games. And going back to Koster, this idea that playing games is learning and is doing something goes right in the face of the idea that it doesn't have a purpose, and what a lot of people think, where games are something that we do to escape from our experience, when in many ways the experiences that we have, as Peirce talks about, our personalities, our personas in our virtual spaces, are in some ways more real to us than the ones that we have outside. And I think about things like playing online games, playing Overwatch. There is definitely a difference when people start talking using the voice channel versus typing text or the prefabricated chats that pop up. You do get a sense immediately of a heightened sense of importance to the whole thing, because you're now making that connection to someone else who's in the game. And this is true of vast open worlds as well as smaller, less persistent ones. So that doesn't apply to things like Overwatch, where the persistent criteria comes in. But the fact that we can play World of Warcraft, play Minecraft, build things that last or that are there, or our actions in World of Warcraft can actually have an impact, and we see that impact both on ourselves as avatars and on the world around us in terms of the gameplay and the aspects of the world that we can affect, really makes such a huge difference. And I just think that there's something to that, as opposed to in the real world where, for example, we make a contribution to the Red Cross for disaster relief. Yes, we have that, and we've done something that should have a real effect in the real world, but we don't get that sense of connectedness to the actual impact that we're making necessarily. And we also have a more permanent record, whether it's through game recording or looking at our stats and player cards and things like that. So you actually have that that artifact that you can show to the contribution that you made. So that's the things that really jumped out at me in this chapter, and the things that I think are really fascinating to me in terms of how we engage with games in ways that we don't always engage in the real world.